We're currently located at the back of the dairy, which is where the Brewhouse fireplace is. Now, we know that this is 1700. We're currently literally on the right hand side of that. You'll see the long black pipe. Now, that door that we mentioned on one of the other recordings was where the back door of the house was in 1624. So that's where the oratory is now, and you know it's got that kind of circular section over the top, the arch section. That's where that door would have been located. Literally on the left hand side of this pipe, that's where the door would have been in 1624. We then know that in 1700 the brewhouse is added on, and then this is actually having then access from the brewhouse into the actual hunting lodge itself, obviously once again with that staircase going down into the basement as well. The brewhouse fireplace that you see here has got multiple kind of added additions into it. So we've got later Victorian bits being added in, but you can see the brickwork where the archway is there originally with that fireplace as well, and it would have been much deeper being Inglenook. So yeah, you can see here where the brickwork has been filled in, and the smaller fireplace added in later. Now, in 2010 or 2011, when they did the works on this property, I've actually seen the original timbers here as well. So where we're now currently standing is facing the biggest wall, which is on the right hand side now of the black pipe. Now there is very closely studded huge timbers, really, really high timbers to about half the height of that, which I've seen when they were doing the work. And yeah, I mean, it shows you obviously when we had the woodland here, they had regular access to this wood. The footprints that we have here as well give us a really good indication of what it's looking like in 1700. And actually, it juts out, the length of this juts out very much the same length as as what you see of the dairy now. You know, that is 1700. The tail end section of that, you can see that the two buildings there are actually near enough the same length, and there seems to be a gap in between the two as well. You'll see there's the window on this brewhouse section, and on the left hand side of that looks like a little coal store, which has probably been added on later, and probably isn't part of the 1700 section. It's just been added on a little bit later, I think, that piece itself, but once again we don't fully know. When we're looking at the footprint here, you can see where the brick outline of the window is here, over in this kind of corner section, which is literally next to where the brewhouse fireplace is on the left hand side. You can see that kind of 50p piece, you know, sort of shape for you. But yeah, it's nice to be able to actually stand in here and imagine the walls in here and imagine what it looks like, because then once again, where the fireplace is on the right hand side of that, when they took this off for the building works, I've seen wallpaper in here which was probably from the 1930s 40s, which was floral. So that means that this place was kind of perhaps a nice little cosy sitting room. You can imagine it being lived in. But what I want to touch on is obviously 1700. We've got a hunting lodge which is built in 1624. You know, then we've got this big expansion in 1700. Why is that? What's going on? Now we know this place has been used by Catholics. We know the property is in this area is known as Little Rome, such a high population of Catholics. I did a bit of research, and there's a priest called Father Robert Collingwood. Now, he was a Jesuit. He's actually said to be buried over at Black Ladies. There used to be a chapel there. There is no longer, but that's where he's said to be buried. And he was actually the chaplain or the family priest for the Fitzherbert family. And that's the Fitzherbert family of Swinnerton, which is over towards Staffordshire, top end of Staffordshire. So essentially, just a kind of potted history on that one. Late 17th century, the Fitzherberts. John Gifford's daughter, Frances, married John Cotton in 1633. And then their daughter, Jane, inherits Boscobel and White Ladies with her husband, Basil Fitzherbert, and he's the one of Swinnerton. But then you can imagine they're in Boscobel. Boscobel is now being used, and we know from the St. Omer records, I know from the St. Omer records, that Father Robert Collingwood is here, and he's a superior as well. So that means he's got priests underneath him. It kind of feels like Boscobel might have been used for training, and we know that it's been used for illegal masses and stuff like that, but it seems to be a really big hub. Same with, obviously, you've got Gifford House at the time, which is really important for Catholicism back then. This is Gifford House of Wolverhampton, or Gifford House, should I say, if you're from Wolverhampton. And that itself, it seems very much like this area is becoming a real kind of an interesting area for maybe training. And also, I think even the bishop was over at Gifford House as well at the time period. So you've got lots going on here at that point. Maybe we're having that big expansion in 1700 because there needs to be a few more beds, a bit more living space. You just never know. Obviously, things are becoming a little bit more relaxed as well. People are getting away with it in here, this area, aren't they? So, the sheer fact that we've got those records from St. Omer's that he's here, and also you've got the baptismal records and the marital records from black ladies. So that means, there's a lot of people being even, brought into the church or having children and being baptized, and that means there's a community here that is thriving, maybe small, but it's they're able to practice their faith as they want to.
So just to clarify, if you'd actually walk through effectively the back of the oratory,
yeah,
would that have brought you straight into this building, or would you have been in a passageway?
I think you would have basically come directly into the bottom of the building.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the footprint in here, it doesn't look like there's any space that's a corridor. And also, it seemed a bit strange to me that there'd be a corridor next to the brewhouse fireplace on the left-hand side. It seems too much of a close space. And then, obviously, the brewhouse itself down here, I mentioned about sleeping spaces. Well, that might have been more so upstairs, because down here this is being used. A brew house back then is being used probably as a bakehouse. You're going to dual use that fuel, and down here would have actually been working. And once again, potential of pre-stoles, hiding spaces, those lots going on, especially with maybe storage and stuff like that. So there's an option with that one.
And the access to upstairs from the corridor upstairs, basically.
Yeah, so when you walk along the corridor and you go past the white room door, which would be on your right-hand side, that door that's blocked up on the end of the corridor is actually, if we look up towards the top end of that black pipe, you can see where that doorway would have been, and that would have gone into the top of this building itself.
And this building actually only disappeared within living memory, didn't it?
Yeah, it was 1969. It was pulled down by the Ministry of Works. There's a scrap of a story that they didn't know that it was actually as old as it was. I don't know, maybe once again it was a sort of it's a worse for wear job. It can't be patched up. Maybe we haven't got the money. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Pull down. And you never know. Maybe I'm being a bit of a cynic with that one. Yeah.